So, might as well strike while the iron's hot. I figure if I go ahead and record a few of these and release them fairly soon after each other, it'll help motivate me to continue on. But welcome back to Red Star Reviews / Red Star 40K and our conversation about Warhammer 40K and my journey towards a 2,000 point army of Adeptus Mechanicus for tournament play. So, today, the focus is going to kind of be on what you would need if you really want to get started in Warhammer 40K to collect a faction, right? Because, I mean, there's any number of ways to get started in it. There are tons of posts out there on how to buy this, how to buy that. There are sets you can buy that come with all sorts of things, but this is more just a generalized, not a, hey, buy this product. This is what you basically will need to get moving in Warhammer 40K. So, first and foremost, you're going to need a rule book. Right now, they're on their 9th edition. Their core rule book is available for purchase as a print, and it is, typically their rule books are very well done. They have a lot of artwork, a lot of information, a lot of lore, a lot of things added into them that just kind of make them appealing. But you can also get a free version of the rule book online via their app. You don't have to be a subscriber to the Warhammer Plus app to get it. You just have to download the app, and then you can access the core rules. It's a little bit clunky online, I find. And every time you reopen the app, it's downloading for optimized performance, which brings you back to the very beginning of the rule book again. So I don't know if they intentionally made it clunky to try and encourage subscriptions or purchases. I don't know. But the rule book is the first thing that you're pretty much going to need if you're going to be playing. You don't have to necessarily get it in that order, but just be aware. To play a game, you have to understand the rules. So you're going to need the core rule book. They're currently in their 9th edition of it. Warhammer 40K is something that's been around for quite a while. So there's all different editions floating out there. So when you're trying to purchase one, if you decide to go used, just make sure you're getting the current edition. So that way you're getting the most up-to-date rules. And also keep in mind, if you do buy some box sets come with the core rules in them. So if you're going that route to start your army, just keep an eye out for those sorts of things. The next thing that you're going to need to do is you need to pick a faction. So it took me, like I said, I got back into Warhammer 40K again back at the start of 2020. It's now getting close to a third of the way through 2022, and I've just now picked a faction. So you don't have to do this too quickly, but it's more along the lines of, if you want to be playing, it's better to, because the minis aren't cheap, y'all. So the sooner you pick a faction, the sooner you can go ahead and start collecting that faction. So that way your finances are going towards something that can benefit you down the road. For picking a faction, maybe I need to do a special episode just on that. But you need to think about your play style and the faction's play style. A good example I've heard is think about how you are when you play video games. If you've played an online video game where you're fighting against another force, or you're playing like competitively with a few of y'all at home or something like that, or even think about how you play some board games. Are you an aggressive sort when you play? Do you want to charge up and come to grips with your opponents? Or do you prefer hiding back in the background and trying to snipe at them? Do you like something in between those two things? Do you want to be moving quickly? Do you not care about moving quickly? You just want to be defended and well protected. Think about those aspects of it, because a lot of that goes into what you will want to play as a faction. Because some factions look really cool, but their play style is not something that's going to suit you very well. I mean, you can play it any which way you want to, but realistically, the closer you can play a faction to kind of to its strengths, the better off you'll probably do when you're playing, and most likely have a little bit more fun. Not saying the goal is to win everything, but have fun. So factions, like I think I probably need to do another episode for breakdown of factions, so that way you can kind of look and you can see my thought process on that. So we'll table that, and I'll jump back into those in another episode, possibly later this week, to keep me motivated to keep on recording, right? After you pick a faction, the next thing you're going to need to do is get that codex for the faction. So the core rules are in the core rulebook. Those apply across the board, unless you run to an exception. And any form of an exception or any specialized thing for your faction is going to be in the codex. So, ta-da! Here's a codex for the Adeptus Mechanicus. It is a very beautiful piece of work here. The pages are gorgeous. The instructions in it are amazing. This is not the best medium to try and show that in my vehicle. I'm sitting here. Oh, but these will set you back maybe around $50, unfortunately. And again, when you're getting one, you got to make sure that you're getting the current edition of it. Now, not all factions are updated with every new edition, I don't think, or they are. It just doesn't all happen at once. So when a new edition of rules comes out, all the old codexes aren't immediately outdated, but once they come out with a new one for that edition, then anyone before it is now technically outdated. So you have to go ahead and get your codex and learn it. In the codex, you find important things like point listing for the minis, description of the weapons for the minis and the pieces for the minis, and how that affects their points, how you load them out. You'll find that faction's doctrinas or canticles, or basically your army, when they're working together in Warhammer 40K, gets a set of specific rules that guide their action and can give them buffs, is what it's called. So let's say your minis, when you're rolling your dice, you have to roll a 3 or higher to hit. There are certain things that you can do if your army is constructed in a certain way, based on your codex, that would allow you to be able to hit on rolls of 2 or higher. So there's benefits there. You just have to be able to read through it, learn what it is. It gives you the lore for your particular army. And we'll dive into that a little bit more as well when we go into the factions. But you need a codex so that way you can know what you need to collect to get to the 2,000 point goal, if that's your goal, or 500 point, or 1,000 or 1,500, or whatever your goal is. And to also learn what special traits that faction has that you can utilize on the gaming table, and also to learn the backgrounds of it. And it gives you a lot of really good information. It's very worthwhile, and gives you examples of even the pieces when they're painted. So that helps you a lot. The next thing that you end up needing, and this is where, it gets kind of based on what you want to do. If you're just wanting to game with your friends, you could probably get the core rules and just keep on rolling. But if you want to get beyond game with your friends and enter some local tournaments, then it's going to help to get your factions codex. If you really want to get into some legit tournaments, then you need to get the Games Workshop's most recent mission book, because the mission book describes the games that you will be playing at the tournaments and how to play them. And it also gives updates to factions, and it basically sets the stage for that year, or however long they run them. I really don't know. I think it's for a year, but I'm new to all this and very amateur, so hey. But the mission books, I think, run for about a year, and that kind of lets that edition play and how it plays. So those are very helpful. They just released a new one. I don't remember how to pronounce the name. It's like Nakamand or something like that, that I'll probably be trying to pick up so that way I can learn. Then the other thing that they'll give you, that you'll want to watch Games Workshop for, is the quarterly data balance sheets. So, like I told you, the codex has the points value of your minis. So that way you know how many you can field, what it costs you to field, right? But the balanced data sheets is something that allows Games Workshop to look back and see, did we do right or wrong with this score? Now that a bunch of people have played, do we need to increase a point value or decrease a point value, and it gives them a chance to be able to get the game, I don't know if more equal or more fair is the right phrase, but more competitive, more enjoyable for the people who are playing it. It lets them have an opportunity to correct things that might not have been right at first. So those are available for free online at Games Workshop. And I'm glad I found out about those, because the most recent one they changed greatly changed all points values for AdMech that are located within their newest codex. So I'm not saying the codex is outdated, but the points in there are outdated. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. All the other stuff in there still works, but the actual minis points value has increased for the most part for AdMech. So AdMech forces became a little bit more expensive points-wise, the field, which is still fine. I still enjoy the faction, and that goes back to a point that I made in the last video. You want to pick a faction that you can enjoy, because the points value, the meta, will change. Their abilities will change. The way they fight against other forces will change. So you want something that you're going to be happy with, even if it changes. That's why it's really hard to kind of chase the points value in the meta, because then you're just having to purchase and build and paint whole new armies every time you turn around. And that's not an approach that appeals to me. Maybe it does to you. Hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. So you now have your core rules. You've picked a faction. You got that codex. You got your mission books. You have your QWERTY data balance sheet. What else do you need? Well, you need your minis. So now there's lots of ways to get involved in purchasing the minis. They actually have like box sets for factions, kind of like a start collecting box set or a combat patrol box set. Interesting to note, combat patrol box sets offer you a force at the lowest points value it takes to be in an official tournament. So patrol size is the lowest points value, and that's what you would be going for, just to be able to start off. So it'd be multiple patrols to get up to like a 2,000 point size. I forget how much the combat patrol is worth. I'm sure someone's watching this video and they're hollering it at their screen right now. And if I listen closely, I could hear like 150 points or something like that. Although it might be 500. I don't remember. But a combat patrol is the lowest points value that you could start off at a tournament, and offers a way to get a bunch of minis at a discount rate, because if you bought them all separately, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But obviously you have to get your minis. This is why picking out a faction early on kind of benefits you, because let's say back in 2020, I decided to get AdMech. Then all the minis I had bought since then, most of the minis I bought since then, because remember, I still like kit bashing and online narratives, would be Adeptus Mechanicus, and I'd be well on my way to the Force. But I'm starting mine, so I have Skitarii. These were my first purchase for Adeptus Mechanicus, and the first mini that I put together for my Adeptus Mechanicus Force. This is, as I appropriately named him, Othello, because, yeah, I can just, Horatio. I'm sorry, I got your name wrong, buddy. This is Horatio because literally it looks like Hamlet sitting there with, alas, poor York. Horatio, I knew him sitting in hand, and I didn't want to name him York or Hamlet, so we went ahead and went with Horatio. Just a good start for a mini. Now, here's where minis get to be fun. Each thing on this mini basically represents something that they will have in the battle. So like the gun that you pick for the mini changes the ability that they have to fight, their range, durability, how many shots they get, how powerful it is. This particular one, I had to pick between having either an Omnispecs or a Data Tether, and I didn't know the difference at the time. But Omnispecs seemed to make sense when I went and looked online, because it gives a squad of Skitarii Rangers, which this is with a galvanic rifle for sniping, the ability to ignore light cover of whoever they're shooting at. Turns out a Data Tether would also be great, because that allows them to communicate with their Skitarii Marshal to give them greater benefits throughout the whole game. But yeah, That's why some people will magnetize the arms so they can decide what they want to do and swap them in and out. That's a little bit too much for me. But as you can see, Horatio is put together, made some careful choices on what to use, and I'll go more into that in future episodes. But the next thing after you have minis is you got to paint your minis. So when you're painting your minis, you got to think about, you need to prime them with a rattle can, as it were, good old spray paint. Only you probably don't want to use the Krylon spray paint that you see everywhere like at Walmart. The reason is that can sometimes wash out the details on it. Minis, there is mini spray paint. You can get like Citadel's one from, it's the Games Workshop one. It's a little bit pricey. Army Painter has very good spray paint as well. You can go online and find all kinds of mini spray paint. If Army Painter wants to sponsor me, hey, I'm available for that. But Army Painter gray is what I normally use to start off. Some people will use a dark color. Some people use a light color. Depending on what effect you want when you put your paints actually on the mini, what color base coat you have plays a part. But the mini spray paint has a different pigmentation than what you would buy just to tag a wall. And that's to go ahead and allow you some of these fine details not to get overwashed. After your base paint, then you're going to need your actual miniature paints. It goes without saying that you're also going to need some paint brushes. And also, I should have added in, to get this mini, I need an X-Acto knife to cut them off the sprue. And also I needed some plastic cement to go ahead and glue them together. So yeah, there's a lot of little details in all that, which we can cover kind of more. This is still the broad one, right? So after that, you got to paint them, and you got to think about what paints you want to use. It actually matters. The paints that you use to paint your minis can denote an area of allegiance that comes with certain benefits or certain detractions. That matters. And then you see this nice little base he's on, how plain that base is. To actually enter into a tournament, I'd have to paint and decorate that base as well. So it has to have some form of roughage or foliage or rocks on it, good old tactical rocks. So that in a nutshell is kind of what you have to get rolling. You got to have your core rules. You need to have your choice of factions. Then you're going to want to have your codex, your mission book, check your quarterly balance data sheet. Say that 5 times fast. And then you're going to want to have your minis. You're going to want to have your items to cut and glue them together. You're going to want to have your paints and paint brushes to be able to put them together. You're going to want to go ahead and know what sort of basing you want to put upon it. And that is how you start. So yeah, we're already running a little bit, longer than I was thinking. I was thinking about 15 minutes. So we're hitting 18-minute mark. So in the next upcoming episodes, we can dive a little bit deeper into the different factions of Warhammer 40K, what led me to choose Adeptus Mechanicus. And we can also go a little bit deeper into how to kind of pick out your army and what sort of forces will make up a 2,000-point army. And I'll try and find the answer to how many points a combat patrol is worth. If you know the answer, you can put it in the comments down below so that we can all see that. That'll be great. Be sure to go ahead and hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and have fun. I hope that y'all are enjoying my return to YouTube with new purpose and this conversation as we try to build towards an Adeptus Mechanicus Army. Do note, yes, I just watched my video from about 8 months ago, and my beard was slightly different. I think my hair was a little bit shorter at that time. I'm overdue for a haircut and a little bit of a trim. I will not be keeping my facial hair in one set form for the course of all these videos. I saw one YouTuber was talking about how they let their hair stay long for a long period of time when they hated it, and kept their facial hair when they hated it because they wanted to be coherent through all the video. They wanted that to just stay the same since they were recording at different times and not throw the YouTuber viewer out of the, the moment. Well, since pretty much all my videos right now are in one take and recorded live, probably not going to throw y'all off. And it might be some time before I get this done because, hey, it didn't just get big and fluffy overnight there. So enough talk about that. I'll throw in there on the book reading front, for those of you who have been following me from Red Star Reviews, the majority of my book reading at this time is still tied up with the SPSFC, the Self-Published Science Fiction Competition. We made it through our early rounds of there, and now we're dealing with some semifinalists and reading some really great books. And it is definitely worth checking out that competition and following along with it, because you will find, if you like science fiction, this is a bunch of independent sci-fi that is just, there's a lot of great books out there, y'all. It's a renaissance for independent books in fantasy and science fiction right now. So if you read either of those genres, should jump on in there. But yeah, that's where we are. And the next couple episodes will hopefully dive a little bit deeper into some of the things that we just touched upon this episode. And I hope all y'all are doing well. Thanks for listening.